Late at night, I was awakened by a frantic doorbell, pounding on the front door, and a woman's scream. As I stumbled down the stairs, my sister Christy reached the door first and flung it open. Crying and sobbing, my mother, Katie, rushed into the house. "Carl is gone. Carl is gone," Katie exclaimed between sobs, throwing herself into Christy's arms. "And he took Carl Jr. with him. They're both gone. Both missing." "What happened?" Christy asked, still holding on to Mom. Through the open door, Katie's sister, my Aunt Evelyn, burst in. "Carl thinks Katie is cheating on him," Evelyn said, lifting her eyes to me and Dad. "I'm so sorry, Paul. I brought Katie here because she was determined to come on her own, and in her state, I was afraid she'd get into an accident." Mom was still sobbing. "Carl said he is proof that I'm sleeping with you, Paul," Mom said, wiping her eyes and looking at Dad. "Someone was sending me flowers at work. I told Carl I thought it was him. Then he said he found a motel receipt from the Pine, lingerie in the bag in the trunk of my car, and even a disposable phone with your work and cell numbers in the call log under the seat." Katie took a deep breath. "Carl claimed he spoke with the manager of the Pine Motel, and they recognized me from a photo, saying I go there several times a week, always paying in cash. They even remembered my car and the bumper stickers. One of the cleaners described you and your car. It's pretty hard to miss that dent on the front fender." Mom slid down to the floor and Saturday. "Paul, Carl thinks we're having an affair. I told him it's not true." At that, Katie pulled out a folder filled with photos from thick paper. "Yesterday, someone sent this letter to Carl's work email." Christy grabbed the photos and grimaced. "I suppose no child should have to see their parents having sex, even in digital photos." Mom started crying again. "Paul, you have to talk to Carl. You have to tell him it's not true. I'm being framed. I can't lose him now, not after everything I've been through." She cried again. Dad tightened the belt of his robe, and a sour expression appeared on his face. "I'm not going to talk to that man. Hell will freeze over first. Didn't my lawyer make it clear to you that I don't even want to speak to you? Now, please, leave this house immediately and take these filthy photos with you." Christy handed the photos to me and turned to Dad. "It's pretty disgusting, Dad, but does this mean you and Mom might get back together?" A hopeful smile appeared on her young face, and I smiled too, but for a different reason. Mom looked at my sister. "No, sweetheart, your father and I haven't been together since we separated before the divorce." I couldn't hold it in and burst out laughing. I laughed so hard I couldn't breathe. I stumbled on the steps and collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming down my cheeks from laughing so much. God, my sides hurt. "Jason," my sister yelled at me. "What's wrong with you?" I wiped my nose and tried to stop laughing. "Come on, sis. You've got to see the humor in this. The reason Mom and Dad split up was because Mom cheated on Dad with Carl. Now Carl is leaving Mom because he thinks she's cheating on him with Dad." I couldn't stop giggling. After Mom cheated on Dad, I can't imagine why Carl would suspect that she'd cheat on him. What could have possibly given Carl the idea that Mom wouldn't be 100% faithful to him? As they say, once a cheater, always a cheater. I started laughing again. You couldn't write a better comedy than this. "Fair? What affair?" Christy looked at Mom. "Dad said you two separated because you gradually grew apart. You didn't cheat on Dad, right, Mom?" "Christy," Aunt Evelyn began, "I think this is something between your mom and Dad." I could tell that my younger sister Christy hadn't known about this. She stopped hugging Mom and tried to look her in the face. "You had sex with someone else?" Mom just sobbed. A stunned expression froze on Christy's face. "No way, Mom. You slept with other men while you were married to Dad?" Mom lifted her eyes from the floor. "Technically, it wasn't cheating. It was just one person." Mom wiped her eyes again. "Christy, you're too young to understand. I've always loved your father, and I still love him. It just happened. You see, Carl was my first real love. I didn't want the divorce. I thought we could stay together, as a family." I clapped my hands and started laughing again. "Very well, Mom. Hey, sis, ask mom to tell us about her brilliant idea on how to prevent the divorce. Ready? All dad had to do to save the marriage and the family was, listen closely. All he had to do was let mom keep sleeping with Carl and not interfere. I looked at my shocked mother. Yes, Mom, I read your letter. Aunt Evelyn shot daggers at Dad with her eyes. You let the kids read Katie's letter? I jumped up. No, Aunt Evelyn, Dad didn't know I had seen Mom's letter. I looked at Dad. Sorry, Dad. I found Mom's letter over a year ago when I was digging through your desk looking for stamps. Oh my God, Mom. How could you? Christy said, stepping away from Mom. You wanted Dad to have a threesome? No, no. Mom screamed, trying to stand. Nothing like that. I loved both of them. I wanted them both in my life, but not like that. They were two completely different lives, two different worlds. I love your father. I always have, but Carl was my first love, even before you were born. When Carl and I were together, those moments were unforgettable. But I never stopped loving your father, just like I love you and your brother, Jason. I burst out laughing again. Is that true, Mom? Do you really love us? You know what, sis? I overheard Dad talking to Uncle Todd. Dad gave Mom a choice, Carl or her family. That means you and me or Carl. And that was even after Dad found out about their affair. Everything would have been forgiven if Mom had stopped seeing Carl and returned to us as a wife and mother. And you know what? Our loving mother chose Carl, not her kids, not us, the one she supposedly loves so much. Well, we came second. Mom reached out her hands to Christy, but Christy stepped back. Christy, Mom stammered. It wasn't that simple. The situation was complicated. I interrupted. No, Mom, it wasn't complicated at all. It was actually a simple choice. Your own children and family on one side, or a guy from your 20-year-old dreams on the other. You didn't choose US. You wanted to have your cake and eat it too. You chose Carl, not Christy, me, or Dad. Christy backed away behind Dad and hugged him from behind on the staircase. How could you leave us, Mom? You said different lives. So does that mean you don't want to be our mother anymore? Christy buried her face in Dad's shoulder and started crying. I could almost see the venom on my sister's face when she looked at Mom and spat. You're a liar. Enough. Finally, my father's strict voice broke the tension. There will be no such language in this house. Whatever happened between us as husband and wife, she is still your mother. Mom looked at Christy, then at me with pleading eyes. Jason, Christy, please understand. I never wanted things to turn out this way. We are still a family. I always wanted to be close to you. I saw Christy lift her eyes and, through tears, respond with sarcasm. Well, thanks, Mom. You were always around as long as it didn't interfere with Carl. Christy hugged Dad tighter. Every other weekend and on holidays? Well, maybe, Mom, you'll get your first true love to let you see Carl Jr. twice a month? That arrangement worked fine for your first two kids. Why shouldn't it work for Carl Jr.? Plus, you'll have plenty of free time to find your third, fourth, or even fifth true love. Mom was furious. You're wrong. It was never like that. There were feelings you just can't control. I always wanted the best for you too and for your father. I couldn't let that slide. Nonsense, Mom. You not only betrayed Dad and destroyed our family, but you didn't even try to help us or Dad. The best for us? After reading your letter, I started looking through the bills. Did you do anything or contribute to our upbringing after you ran off with your dream lover? Alimony? Child support? Anything? Mom silently stared at the floor, mumbling something about the divorce settlement. Yeah, that's what I thought, I continued. Sis, did you know Dad almost lost the house? Trying to raise two kids on half his income, plus the cost of a housekeeper to take care of us. Do you know Dad had to borrow money from Uncle Todd? Aunt Evelyn's eyes widened. Wow, I thought, even she didn't know? And also, sis, where do you think the money for your prom dress, shoes, and purse came from? It was nice that you and Mom picked them out, but Dad sold Grandpa's coin collection on eBay to pay for your big night. The iPhone Mom got you for your birthday. Who do you think pays the monthly bills? Have you noticed Dad's golf clubs are gone? Not to mention Grandma's jewelry, the silverware, and his baseball card collection. Dad didn't even fix the air conditioner in his car or the dent in it, and he always takes the bus. Come on, sis, did you ever notice Dad packs his lunch every day? It's always peanut butter and jelly or salami sandwiches. Dad turned down 2 promotions because the work hours didn't fit with our schedule. When was the last time you saw Dad hang out with friends, play ball, or just leave the house without us? Meanwhile, Mom and Carl, her dream man, seemed to have no trouble living in their McMansion or going on European vacations. Hey Mom, how much did that custom stroller you bought for Carl Jr. cost last month? Mom looked at Dad. Paul, why didn't you say anything? Carl and I could have. I saw Dad's eyes flare and his face reddened, a sure sign he was struggling to hold back his anger. He said coldly, I take care of this family. My family doesn't need or want your help or his. Damn, Mom, you really know how to pour salt in the wound, I chimed in. By the way, I guess Carl was okay with sharing you when you were Dad's wife, but not the other way around? Old Carl has a problem sharing now that you're his wife? Well, MOM, dear, how does it feel when your first true love takes his family and walks out on you? Feels kind of painful, doesn't it? Mom seemed to remember why she came and collapsed to the floor again, crying. Paul, please, you have to help me. I don't know where Carl and Carl Jr. are. You have to find them. Let Carl know that nothing ever happened between us. I can't lose Carl or Carl Jr. again. She was sobbing, clutching her head in her hands. Dad interrupted her with his calm, even voice. All right, this has gone on long enough. Katie, I didn't want to talk to you before, and I still don't want to now. My lawyer made that clear to you. This is the last time you're barging into my family and my home. I'm asking you to leave. You and his personal, affairs are no concern of MY family. Mom shook off Aunt Evelyn's attempts to help her up and leave. Dad didn't even raise his voice as he walked over to the phone and dialed a few numbers. Hello, police. I'd like to report an unwanted guest in my home who refuses to leave. This person showed up uninvited and won't go away. There was a pause as Dad gave the address. Is there a patrol car in the area? Great. Please send it over right away. Thank you. Mom was still crying, and Aunt Evelyn was trying to pull her out of the house. Christy was hugging Dad while he quietly spoke to her. I lazily glanced at the photos. If the people in them didn't look like my parents, I might have actually enjoyed them. I don't know how much time passed, but I looked up when I saw the flashing lights reflected in the open front door. Uncle Todd entered the house in his patrol uniform. He looked surprised, but then removed his hat and walked over to Aunt Evelyn. After talking with Dad, he finally approached Mom. Katie, Uncle Todd said in a tone I had never heard from him before, if you don't leave right now, I'll have to arrest you. Uncle Todd pulled out his handcuffs. Katie, Aunt Evelyn insisted, you'll never see Carl or Carl Jr. if you end up in jail. Come on, let's go. It seemed to finally sink in for Mom. She let Aunt Evelyn help her to her feet and lead her out the door, with Uncle Todd following behind. Dad, still holding Christy close to him, walked to the door and shut it. We'll talk tomorrow, Dad said, and let us upstairs. The next day, Dad tried to talk to Christy and me, but it was clear his heart wasn't in it. Neither Christy nor I wanted to see Mom again. Dad said he wouldn't force us. He just asked us to think about it, since none of us were saints. She was still our mother and made mistakes, like any other person. I noticed that Dad struggled to say Mom's name. A few days later, while I was kicking a ball on the driveway, Uncle Todd pulled up in his police car. He gestured for me to sit in the passenger seat of the patrol car. Uncle Todd handed me the photos Mom had brought to the house that day. Not bad, Uncle Todd said, looking at me. Our IT specialists say that if this were a court case, they wouldn't be able to tell if these are real or fake. I shrugged. You specialize in computer graphics, right? Last summer, you took an advanced special effects course in Los Angeles. Uncle Todd leaned back in his seat. I didn't fake these photos, I replied, and that was the truth. I hired one of the instructors from the course to do it at the company he worked for. I provided a few photos of mom and dad. The final photos cost me every cent I earned from my summer job. Uncle Todd opened a small notebook. I spoke with the manager of the Pine Motel. The manager remembered a woman who matched Katie's description, but he couldn't be sure since she always wore dark glasses. The van also looked familiar, but I checked with the rental companies, and it seems A1 Rentals leased the same van each time that lady booked a room at the motel. The rental clerk remembered because the van was always returned cleaner than when it was picked up. I shrugged again. The role of my mom was played by a lookalike housewife I found on an adult site, and I had to cash one of my college savings bonds to pay her. Renting the van cost me another savings bond. Every time, I had to put on and scrape off those stupid "baby on board" and "catch the wave" stickers from the bumper. Now, Uncle Todd continued, the hotel maid identified your dad's car by the dent. However, I don't think Carl understood her correctly when she described the driver of the dented car. It wasn't a middle-aged man, but a young guy, almost a teenager. Uncle Todd gave me a stern look. You drive your dad's car, don't you? If I check the school records, won't I find you absent on the days his car was at the motel? I started to sweat a little. Christy drives Dad's car sometimes too, I suggested. Uncle Todd nodded. The flowers were purchased from the florist using a prepaid Visa gift card. Each delivery was made after a phone call. Your mom swears she hasn't been to the Pine Motel since the divorce. So how did the receipts end up in the glove compartment of her car, along with the prepaid cell phone? And you have a key to your mom's van, don't you? Damn, it was getting heated. Yeah, Christy has one too, I said hesitantly. Uncle Todd ignored this and continued. The women's underwear hidden in the van wasn't your mother's size. It was too small. It wouldn't fit her. Damn, I thought. What the hell do I know about women's underwear? I took Christy's underwear from the dirty laundry and replaced them with new ones in the same size. Christy didn't seem to notice. Uncle Todd closed his notebook and slipped it into his pocket. Turning to me, he said, You're 18 now, so I'm not going to treat you like a child. Here's what we're going to do. You'll see a police psychiatrist, he's a friend of mine, for a while and sort things out with him, and we'll keep this between us. He handed me a business card. I nodded and got out of the patrol car. After a few sessions, the psychiatrist told Uncle Todd that it was a one-time incident, even beneficial for my health, as it acted as a release of pressure. That was probably true. After Mom left that evening, I felt most of my anger and resentment toward her disappear, like air escaping from a balloon. I mean, I'm not as close to Mom as I am to Dad, but we're okay. Mom and my sister Christy sort of patch things up. They talk, but Christy has distanced herself from Mom. During visits, Christy never stayed overnight at Mom's anymore. However, it didn't matter much in the near future. Mom couldn't afford to pay for her McMansion and was drained by the mortgage, so the bank eventually took her house. She moved in with Uncle Todd and Aunt Evelyn for a while. Carl fled to Germany with his son and filed for divorce there since he had dual citizenship. Carl refused to speak with Mom, and international lawyers and legal fees completely drained her. Mom can only see Carl Jr. in Germany, and for each visit, she has to surrender her passport. As her funds dwindled, she saw Carl Jr. less and less. Mom seems to think Carl will change his mind if Dad talks to him, but Christy told me she heard that Carl got back together with his first wife in Germany. Damn, that guy really loves his past flames. That evening was a turning point for Dad. I think he no longer felt the need to be the constantly overprotective parent, always hovering around his kids. It seemed like a weight was lifted off his shoulders. He stood a little taller and started dating the woman who ran the diner he frequented. She's tall, busty, loud, and lanky, the complete opposite of Mom. She's Dad's age, a widow, always with a wide smile on her face and a constant stream of chatter. She makes Dad smile a lot, never taking his serious demeanor too seriously. She even made Dad be polite to Mom. During Christy's graduation, Mom and Dad were even sitting next to each other. But I still don't think Mom understands. She approached Dad at Uncle Todd's 4th of July backyard party and asked him for money to visit Carl and Carl Jr. I thought Dad was going to choke on his hot dog. He didn't respond, just turned and walked away. Recently, Mom asked Aunt Evelyn to feel Dad out about the idea of getting back together. I didn't catch Dad's full response, but it was something about skating in hell. Thank you for listening until the end.